So, if you're watching this, you already know how important sleep is. And I could promise if you do the 15 things I'm about to mention in this video, your sleep quality and your sleep quantity will get better. Because these are things I've learned from watching countless neuroscientist podcasts like Matt Walker and Andrew Huberman, along with watching their videos on it, along with sometimes reading/skimming their books on it, and along with my own personal experience of getting garbage sleep to good sleep and knowing what worked and didn't work. So first thing I want to say that doesn't really get mentioned in most videos about getting better sleep or podcasts, but something that helped me out a ton is getting a weighted blanket. And what this does is it just helps calm down your nervous system. And it changed my sleep so much, it's the reason I'm putting it first on this list. And you don't have to trust me. Right here, I'm gonna put text messages of a friend of what he was telling me when he got his weighted blanket for the first time. And yeah, literally anytime a friend puts on my weighted blanket, they'll say things like, "Damn, wait, this is nice." I'm quoting a friend exactly on that one. So weighted blanket, highly recommend it. I don't know the exact recommendation, but ChatGPT says something like get it 10% of your body weight. That should be how heavy your weighted blanket is. But this was an absolute game changer for me. My second thing I recommend is an unwinding activity. When I was getting garbage sleep, right before bed, when I was just laying in bed on my phone, I'll be watching things like John Jones highlights or MMA highlights, and that's nice to do. But right before you're trying to go to sleep, you're usually trying to calm yourself down, not hype yourself up with John Jones videos. So what Dr. Matt Walker recommends is just doing a calming activity like journaling or reading. It doesn't really matter too much, just something that's calming. Like I said, my favorite things to do is either journaling, just writing down stuff that's on my mind to throw it out of my brain before I go to sleep, or just reading a chill book. And something he suggested is that you should be reading something that's boring. Like I have a book that I'm reading about a World War I soldier's memoir, and sometimes that could kind of elevate my heart rate or just get me a little bit, damn, this is intense. But something like an informational book or just something calming. The perfect book for me was this book of just facts about sleep. And that's something I find interesting that will help me with this YouTube channel. And also, it's kind of nice and boring to help me go to sleep. The third thing is earn your sleep. What I mean by this is just doing something to where you're going to feel tired at the end of the day. Like if you just lay in bed all day doom scrolling, you're probably not going to be too sleepy to go to sleep 16 hours later. So there's many things you could do, but something that's really good to do is work out. And it's just common knowledge, and it's proven by many studies that working out does help you sleep at night. It's something that was brought up when I was doing my personal training certification of a way to convince people to work out if they're not already. And this is just a theory that was brought up, but they say like when we used to be cavemen, if we didn't go out and hunt, we would starve, so it makes sense that you don't feel sleepy until you've went out and hunt, or in this case, went out and ran on the treadmill for a little bit or lifted some weights. Because back in the caveman times, if you went to sleep before doing any physical activity, it means you would probably starve to death. So that's just one theory of why people think working out will help you sleep better. Fourth thing is what sleep specialists call your sleep environment, and this is broken down into 3 parts. Part 1 is just making sure your room is dark. And there's a couple ways to do this. One is getting blackout curtains like you could see right here. Another, which is good to do if you're traveling, or if you're just renting out the place and you don't want to spend your money getting blackout curtains, is just using a blindfold. The second thing is a quiet place. And obviously the easiest way is just to pick a quiet place in general to sleep, whether that's sleeping far away from the person that snores. Or something that I did is when I was looking for a new apartment to live in, I would always ask, hey, this is a quiet neighborhood, right? There's no like frat houses that's going to be having parties late at night. And just double checking with the neighbors like, yo, this is a quiet place to live, right? Before moving in. But if you're in college, that's not really an option. It's going to be loud at night. So that's when you could do things like buying earplugs. And these are ones I highly recommend, where they're the ones that you could roll up and they'll expand in your ear. And also make sure to get ones that have like this little flap, because the ones without it that are like this, sometimes it could feel like they're getting stuck in your brain or they're deep and you really have to dig them out. So yeah, make sure you get the ones with like the little safety hook. And last thing is a cold room. I think everyone could agree it's kind of hard to sleep when it's super hot out. And everyone likes to be a little bit cozy when trying to fall asleep. So just make sure it's slightly cold. You could do this by turning on a fan, having some AC on, opening up a window, or my brother got me an 8 sleep, which really helps a lot. But every neuroscientist agreed that sleeping in a cold room is better for your sleep. And if you want, they gave an exact temperature. I forgot what it was, but I'll search it up and put it somewhere right here. But yeah, being cold when you sleep helps a lot. And a bonus tip is that something I learned is when you take a shower right before bed, it should be hot because that way your body does certain mechanisms to help cool your body down. It's the same thing in how hotter countries they prefer to eat spicy food because then your body cools itself down automatically. It sounded counterintuitive to me at first, but yeah, it really helps a lot. So yeah, point four, sleep environment, a dark, quiet, and cold room. Next point is your circadian rhythm, which is basically just a fancy word of saying waking up at the same time and going to sleep at the same time. According to the science, it's more important that you wake up at the same time every day, and the sleeping time is less important, but still important. This is because when you wake up, your body activates certain hormones to have throughout the day, and then at the end of the day, 16 hours later, it activates the certain hormones to go to sleep. So it's easier for your body to do this if it's at the same time every day versus having to set your hormones at a certain time this way versus back to this way versus back to this way. This is actually one of the most common things that I hear neuroscientists say to do, but unfortunately, I know it's not a possibility for everyone. But if you can do it, that would be great. But I know in this economy, you sometimes have to take a job where you're occasionally taking night shifts. Next thing is just getting sunlight in the morning. This ties into the previous point, but yeah, it just helps set your circadian rhythm. And when I say it helps, I'm not saying, oh yeah, it kind of helps. No, like it really, really helps. If you watch any Andrew Huberman video, at some point he's probably going to mention about getting sunlight in your eyes in the morning. And it's the best if it's morning light, but yeah, like I said, that's not always a possibility for people. But it's something he absolutely lives by. And yeah, one more thing, he says that you can't just look at the sunlight through the mirror. It has to be out in the open, like the mirror sometimes filters out some of the good stuff that goes into your brain. I have no idea what he's actually talking about. But yeah, watch any of his videos if you want to learn why sunlight is so important. I'll link one in the description below. But if you do this, another thing is you don't actually have to stare directly into the sun. You just have to like look at it. So if this lamp was the sun, I'd be getting my morning sunlight just by passively getting it into my eyes. But yeah, watch my video in the description to find out why that actually is so important, other than the fact that it helps set your circadian rhythm. So the next thing is taking a supplement called magnesium glycinate. This is something that was recommended by the brain health expert for combat sports called Simon Boretz. He has a great channel that you should check out also. But they were just saying this is a supplement that will really help with sleep. And with a lot of supplements, I've taken supplements like fish oil and I don't really feel anything, but according to the science, it's really good for you. But with magnesium glycinate, you could actually feel it when you go to sleep. And it's not something like melatonin, which your brain can easily end up relying on. It's just a nutrient that will help your sleep hormones function properly. At least that's my understanding of it. Next thing is to only use your bed for sleeping. Dr. Matt Walker says your brain associates certain things with certain environments. The example I could give is when I walk into the gym, I instantly feel my body be like, oh shit, it's time to get going. Or when I hit the dinner table, it's kind of like, oh yeah, it's time to kind of sit back and relax. And this is a helpful thing that my body does because it just helps my body prepare for the tasks at hand according to the environment. But if I'm using my bed to do my homework all the time, or I'm using the bed to watch TV all the time, when I go to my bed, my brain might be like, oh, it's time for homework time. Let's lock in and get alert. Or it's time for TV time. Let's focus in on what the show is going to be on. Instead of being like, oh, this is my bed. It's time for me to, go to sleep now. It's the same reason they say it's not really the best idea to eat at your desk, even though it's something that all of us do if we're being honest. Next thing is to avoid weed, at least before going to bed. Many people I know who smoke weed might say, wait, but it helps me fall asleep super easily. And yes, that is true. It helps you lose consciousness, but it actually does things like blocking your REM sleep, which reduces the quality of your sleep. That's why a lot of people who smoke weed to help with their sleep don't have dreams. I actually remember when I was playing football, a lot of people who smoke weed would stop smoking weed before the season. And when they would come to practice, they would say, oh my god, I stopped smoking weed and I've been having super crazy dreams. And that's not because weed blocks your dreams, it's because your brain is finally getting good quality sleep. The nerds call this deep sleep or REM sleep, standing for rapid eye movement. I'll get more into this later on, but yeah, when I say rapid eye movement, even though your eyes are closed, underneath your eyelids, your eyes are actually like spazzing out. Because although people think of sleep as like kind of being dead or whatever, it is actually a super active process. You'll hear more about this in the last point I'm going to give. Next thing is the subject of caffeine. Everyone knows if you're trying to go to sleep, having a cup of coffee is probably the last thing you want to do. And I understand if people have had a long day of work and they have to go train later, sometimes they do need that little bit of caffeine. But for those people, I'd strongly advise not to do that. Because according to the people I've mentioned like 50 times in this video, Andrew Huberman and Matt Walker, they say to avoid caffeine at least 8 to 10 hours before sleep. And that might seem like a lot, but that's because caffeine has a half-life to where you could actively feel it, but then there's the other half where it kind of still lingers in your system. Second to last thing is mouth tape. This is just a little thing you could do to increase the quality of your sleep. Like I said, I have an 8 sleep, and one thing I notice is that when I do tape my mouth shut, certain scores will be higher, or they're technically lower, like things like my breath rate, which is good. And when I don't, they're sometimes worse. And this is just because there is a lot of benefits to nasal breathing, meaning only breathing in and out through your nose. And just two things I want to mention on this. One is that a lot of people are concerned is what if my nose gets blocked and then I suffocate? When you're taping it, it's not something that's going to tape your mouth shut like you're a hostage. It's just something to lightly guide your lips together so that your body starts breathing through its nose. If your nose does get blocked for whatever reason, it's just a super light piece of tape that your mouth will just unbutton. And the other thing is that there's many brands of saying like there's special mouth tape to where like it's kind of more expensive, but apparently it's at a higher quality. I'm just going to be honest, and I'm kind of screwing myself if a mouth tape does want to sponsor me in the future, because I think it's complete BS. You could just literally get the 3M tape off Amazon for $3 that'll last you forever, and it does the same exact thing. And arguably does it better because, like I said, the goal is to guide your mouth shut, not like seal it shut like you're a hostage. But yeah, like I said, there is proven benefits to nasal breathing. Of course, there was that kind of brain rot trend a while ago of mewing, where people go like, and allegedly nasal breathing helps with your jawline. I don't know if that's proven, but it is proven to me that when I do tape my mouth shut, some scores are slightly better. Now, I know I just threw a lot at you, but the last thing I want to mention is carbs. Of course, there's things like keto diets that are now popular. And when I've had to lose weights before fights, I've had to cut out carbs. But Dr. Huberman did mention something that I wanted to mention. And he was saying that a lot of people who cut out carbs sometimes end up having trouble sleeping. And he gave his own sciencey explanation, but from my understanding of it, like I said, sleep is an active process and carbs give you energy, not just your body, but also your brain. So your brain does need a fuel source to do the active activity, which is sleeping. And I personally think this is why when I'm super hungry, like super hungry, I cannot sleep. So if you're someone that recently went keto or recently cut out carbs or reduced their carbs and you're having trouble sleeping, this might be something you want to look into. So these are my 15 suggestions. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comment section below. And I could promise, if you just do any of the things I suggested in this video, your sleep will improve. I know this for a fact because it's backed up by evidence and I've just felt it with my own personal experience. And like I said at the start, if you're watching this, you probably already know the importance of sleeping. And this channel is where I help you with your fitness and martial arts goals. But it's just not going to work out if you're not having decent sleep. It doesn't have to be great, but it just has to be somewhat decent. And I know how shitty sleep kind of does ruin people's lives sometimes. So I really hope these things help. But as always, if you want more videos, make sure you subscribe. Also, here's another video you might like. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.